I'm Chelsea Patrice. I'm the Executive Director of the Health Equity Partnership of North Central Mass, and I would like to thank and recognize all of the many people who have made this event possible. Thank you very much to Lori Ruggiero and the staff at Great Wolf Lodge. You always put on a fantastic event. Thank you to FATV and members of the press who are helping us to bring these important stories to those who can't be with us in person today. Thank you to my amazing board and staff. And if you're not running around helping me and helping people register, if you could just stand or give a wave really quick, because you are all so important. I think most of them are actually running around right now. I don't see them, but I know that they are here. So I appreciate you all very much. And you truly do the heart work of this organization, because there is only one of me. And so I really need my board and my staff. I am proud to work alongside each of you every day. Thank you very much to the legislators we have with us today. I just saw Jake Mastrandria from Congresswoman Lori Trahan's office walk in. We will have Senator John Cronin with us here today, and Senator Robin Kennedy and her staff. I see some of Senator Cronin's staff here already. Thank you. We have Rep. Natalie Higgins and her staff with us today. We also have Rep. Margaret Scarsdale and her staff with us. We have, I believe, Barbara Kessler. I think I saw her. If I didn't, she's on her way. She is from the Attorney General's office. We will have Mayor Sam Squalia here today. And joining us in a little while will be Congressman McGovern, and we will also be playing a welcome message from Lori Trahan's office. Lori was not able to be here today, but Congresswoman Trahan is with us in spirit. You are going to hear some very powerful stories here today. We have so much to be proud of here in North Central Mass, and it all starts with listening to our residents, organizing around what's important to them, and letting them lead. That is the core of what we at the Health Equity Partnership believe. And because we believe that, because we live that, we have a network of over 240 organizations, and we sit on around 40 committees, boards, and advisory groups where we listen to and speak on behalf of the roughly 250,000 residents of our region. It is an honor and a responsibility that we do not take lightly. We were there with almost no staff and facing a FY26 funding cliff, leading two of the task force's subcommittees when Neshoba Valley Medical Center closed. We were there to say that just telling people where the next closest emergency room is and how to request their medical records is not enough. We were there to say that asking people how they feel about losing their hospital is insulting if there is no real plan to fill that gap in access to care. And we were there to remind them that opening new Jerry psych beds in Boston does not create a net zero loss for our community. We were there because we are here all the time in our community, and we need to invest in those organizations and those coalitions who are here all the time in our local community, doing this work alongside you every day. We have a budding new food system that works for farmers, for wholesalers, retail buyers, and for consumers at all income levels. We have new transportation initiatives that reject the idea that universal transportation is only possible in densely populated urban areas, and embraces the idea that our large employers, our municipalities, our systems, and our people can create a new model that works for everyone. We are listening to our residents and sitting around the table with them to design better ways to care for mothers and infants, for children in schools, for aging adults and their caregivers. We have many inspiring resident-led projects, programs, and organizations that move mountains every day, and we need your help to hold on to those gains. I thought a lot about what I could tell our legislators that you don't already know. We have a fantastic delegation here in North Central, and you work to bring our interests to Beacon Hill every day. I am not under any illusions about the headwinds we all face. In the coming budget cycle, there will be a lot of competing interests. You will be told that limited dollars need to go to the places with the highest population density. You will be told that it is more efficient to fund large statewide organizations than to fund small regional organizations. Do not be swayed. 5 years ago, we were in the early stages of pandemic lockdown. With it came the stark realization that we were in no way prepared to meet that moment. And there was a mad scramble to flood anemic systems with infusions of funds. From the beginning, advocates warned that this newfound commitment to public health, to prevention, to the systems that support healthy communities could not flag when the moment of crisis passed. There will be another crisis, we warned, and we must have strong systems in place when that happens. Here we are, 5 years later. The ARPA money has dried up, and from the federal level to the local level, we are being told that we all need to tighten our belts. I don't need to tell you this, but somewhere, someone does need to hear it. We never loosened our belts to begin with. Most of us run on skeletal staff, many of whom use the same benefits they help others access. Most of us work far more than the hours that we are paid for, and our message is consistent. Prevention costs less than intervention, but only if we invest in it in the long term and at the local level, in the organizations that know our communities the best and are here working in them every day, year after year. We don't put oil and good gas in our cars for just a couple of years, get one really good set of tires, and then call it done. We don't wait until the engine seizes to put more oil in, because once that happens, oil isn't going to help. There's a reason we call a system that runs smoothly a well-oiled machine. Consistent, reliable funding, even and especially during hard times, is the only way we will still have functioning systems when the crisis passes. I know that I am speaking to the people who already know this. I know that you are proud of your constituents here in scrappy little North Central Mass, but you are our messengers and our advocates on Beacon Hill and Capitol Hill. Tell them from us, if you want your investment to have outsized impact, invest in North Central Mass. If you value innovation and collaborative problem solving, invest in North Central Mass. If you want to see us keep the gains we have made by doing a lot with a little, invest in North Central Mass. With that, I am going to close my remarks on public health, and I am going to welcome Jenna Montgomery from the Neshoba Associated Boards of Health to give further remarks.
Good morning, North Central Mass residents, workers, and esteemed legislators. My name is Jenna. I work in public health education and communications with Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. We are a 16-town public health district in North Central Mass. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today in person. Last year, I had planned to attend, but I unfortunately got sick right before the event and had to record my remarks. I'm glad to be able to speak with you today, especially on such an important topic, public health infrastructure. Happy Public Health Week, by the way. As most folks here know, our region is facing some serious challenges. Hospital and maternity ward closures are just the beginning, and we are seeing the impact on our community's healthcare infrastructure. From EMS to local medical practices, these closures put a strain on both healthcare providers and residents alike. While I am not currently engaged in clinical social work, I am a licensed independent social worker, and I never really take that hat off. I am driven by a passion and an ethical obligation to advocate on behalf of vulnerable populations. My work is always focused on addressing the injustices and inequities that impact the most at-risk individuals, and I can tell you that the work is far from over. To make progress, we need organized advocacy efforts now more than ever. NABH's focus has spanned across a wide range of public health issues, from infectious disease mitigation to substance use disorders, mental health, and health promotion. Every initiative has been centered around one common goal: to create a healthier, more equitable future for our residents. Looking at the federal landscape, we are already seeing how shifts in policies and funding are impacting and challenging community health programs nationwide. February was American Heart Month, and when I went to share the CDC's page on heart disease, as I usually do, I noticed that all references to racial determinants of risk, such as being Black or African American, had been removed entirely, and to my knowledge, these scientifically backed facts have not been restored to public-facing pages. Both locally and nationwide, we've witnessed the erosion of key public health services and our ability to respond to emerging threats, like highly pathogenic avian influenza or the return of diseases such as measles, has been compromised. Measles, once eradicated, is now a reality once again, and I'll be honest with you, measles was not on my 2025 bingo card. This tells us that we have a lot of work ahead. It's not enough to rest on our laurels. We must continue to fight for the health and well-being of our communities, and that requires partnership and communication. Know your neighbors, know your social services organizations, band together to protect the progress we've made and prevent any backslide. As we navigate these challenges, I ask that we take a moment to reflect on the words of civil rights leader Loretta Ross. We need to call in our communities rather than call out. Now more than ever, we need collective action, collaboration, and understanding to drive the changes we need. A stark reminder of the importance of public health is that zip code remains the strongest indicator of one's life expectancy. This reality is not a coincidence. It's a direct result of policy. As we look at our local public health issues, tick and mosquito-borne illness, drought, wildfire smoke, and the overall impact of climate change, we must maintain the infrastructure that allows us to stay ahead of these threats. Public health at its core is about prevention. It's about ensuring that we promote health throughout the life course, from the early years to old age. The U.S. spends more on health care than any other high-income country, but investing in health infrastructure is just as important as spending on health care itself. By focusing on prevention, we can keep our populations healthier for longer. We are at a crossroads. The age of public health reform is here. While we face unprecedented challenges, we also have unprecedented opportunities for collaboration. Together, we can continue to move forward and ensure that our public health infrastructure not only survives, but thrives. Thank you.
I would now like to welcome Rosanna Penny, President of Haywood Healthcare, who's going to speak to us about access to care.
Good morning. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you today. I had the privilege of leading Haywood Healthcare through Chapter 11 bankruptcy. At that time, 40 other healthcare institutions declared bankruptcy. Notably, we were the only one to emerge without shuttering major services, liquidating, or ceasing to exist as an independent, locally controlled healthcare system. Healthcare is in crisis. I don't have to tell you this. And the rural hospitals and community hospitals are the ones that are impacted the most. If you look at our state or across the country 20 years ago, we had many independent community hospitals serving our community. And right now, we're down to a handful of large systems controlling access. If you think that that's the future and that's okay, if we're okay with that future, I urge you to read the studies. After studies, every single one of them reaches the same conclusion. When local communities lose access to healthcare, when they lose local control of the healthcare institutions that are in their communities, those communities suffer. And that includes physical suffering, because study after study shows people avoid preventative care if they have to travel, if they have to take time off from work. Sometimes they don't have means to travel, so preventative care is the first to go. When you avoid preventative care, you start to get sick. Study after study shows when people start to get sick and they don't have access to their community hospitals, they delay care. They wait until they're so sick that they need tertiary center intervention. The cost of healthcare delivery in tertiary centers far exceeds the care that we can provide in the communities. So if we're looking at it purely from the cost perspective, we're shooting ourselves in the feet right now. And this does not even begin to address the quality of life, the satisfaction, the interests, and what community hospitals do to invest in our communities, to make sure that our communities thrive. Frequently, these community hospitals are the economic drivers of our communities. Frequently, they're the largest employer. So when they cease to exist or they lose local control, it inevitably results in loss of jobs. And furthermore, sick people cannot be contributors to a healthy economy. We need our communities to be healthy and to contribute to a healthy economy in the communities. Otherwise, we're going to see disintegration, not just of access to health care, but of the communities in general, and this will impact every aspect of our economy. Our delegation is phenomenal, but I ask all of you to take healthcare out of partisan politics. Healthcare impacts everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosanna. Next up, we have John Cogan, Harvard EMS.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is John Cogan. I am an EMT at Harvard Fire EMS. I'm also a health law and health policy professor at UConn. I'm here to tell you, I'm not here in my official capacity from either organization. I'm here to tell you my personal story. In 2017, I had a massive stroke. My wife, who was 8 months pregnant at the time, her theory is that I did this because I thought she was getting all the attention. My wife called the EMTs. They came to my house. They assessed me. They determined I was having a stroke. And they took me to Neshoba Valley Medical Center, where I got a drug called TPA, which is designed to break up the clots that cause a stroke. I was then shipped off to Boston, and I had a full recovery. My recovery is not due to what happened in Boston, but due to the fact that Neshoba was so close to my home. It took less than 10 minutes to get me there. Right? If I had the same stroke today, I don't think my recovery would be the same. The kind of stroke that I had has a very high mortality rate, and the people who survived this stroke, many of them remain disabled. The reason why I survived is because I got to Neshoba so fast. Today, I wouldn't get to a hospital so fast. Neshoba is closed. The travel time to hospitals is much further from my home, from Harvard, from many of the communities in my area, and the delay in care is significant at these hospitals. So given my story, I'd like to leave with 2 points. First, I know the state is taking steps to prevent financial predators. Oh, I'm out of time. Yikes. Financial predators from taking over our hospitals and healthcare providers. The state must remain diligent in stopping them. Second, the reason why many of our providers are subject to these predators is because Medicaid rates are too low. If they are paid more, they will not be so vulnerable to these types of predators. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we have healthy food access, and I'm going to welcome Marielle Vega from Growing Places to open us up with that.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'll be very brief because I know the time is counted, but I also wanted to use this as an opportunity to advocate for what we do at Growing Places. I started at Growing Places as being one of the recipients of the HIP program. So I was in SNAP and I was receiving the Healthy Incentive Program, and I was receiving the fresh local fruit and vegetables delivered to my home. I was so excited about it that I really wanted to do something, and I was literally knocking on my neighbors' doors to make sure that they had the food that they needed, because we were in the middle of a pandemic, we were in the middle of a crisis, and I know that it may not feel that way to a lot of people right now, but I do believe we're walking into a crisis just as big, if not more, from the impact of the fundings that we have just been limited. And I think we are, if you work in the field that has to do with nutrition and access, I think we're all definitely very concerned of where this is heading. As a recipient of SNAP in that moment, that is all that I had access to. I've always been big in saying that people don't have to tell you their whole life story for you to feel like they need justification and why they need the food access. The reality is that we throw so much food in the United States of America that nobody should be going without food, ever. And so I just really want to take this opportunity to advocate and just please, if you hold the position of power where you can do something about this and fight for HIP, which in the state of Massachusetts is the Healthy Incentive Program. If you're in SNAP, it gives you access to fresh local fruit and vegetables. And it not only helps, the people receiving it, but it also impacts the farmers and it impacts the local economy. I'm very concerned for the students who are currently receiving free and reduced lunches. I do fear that that is definitely a threat. The number one cause as to why people cannot, or children cannot get proper education is hunger, which again is something to me that in the United States feels insane. It feels like it shouldn't be happening because it shouldn't. One of the biggest concerns that I have when it comes to food access and it impacting children also is, I think it's like my Boricua lens, right? My Puerto Rican lens of being in a place where we have experienced food insecurity for different reasons, being impacted and being an island and not being able to get the resources right away. Thank God that we have great weather 24/7 so we can grow our own, but the reality is that we've also experienced scarcity because most of our shipments come from the U.S. And privatizing the food that we get here seems to me like a big fear. Thank you. That I fear that a lot of people don't know what we're walking into because over here we've had a lens of privilege of having food access most of the time. But I do want to please make it a reminder that just because we've had it all the time doesn't mean that we will forever, because even if it's been limited, there's been always a lens of access here, and I fear that we're walking into something that might not be the same. So I'm here as okay, I'm done, but I want to finish with this. Please remember our kids. I feel like we have a moral obligation to make sure our kids are fed, if anybody else, and protect this funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Marielle.
So I'm actually here with Growing Places, not with Gove Farm. I'm Ann Yeagel's less handsome and less entertaining stand-in. So the current food landscape, I believe, is much like that during COVID right now. It's uncertain and it's inconsistent. Farmers are losing their funding, buyers and distributors are also losing their funding, and consumers are losing their financial assistance. Tariffs and market uncertainties are making supply chains difficult to navigate. Farmers don't know if they can get their supplies, and not knowing if you can get your supplies changes how you plan for the season. As we did during COVID, we need to meet these hurdles with support, consistent, committed support. The cuts to HIP and the loss of LFPA means for Growing Places alone, $37,000 of produce each month, or $440,000 of produce for the year, is not going to make it to the tables of those who are the most food insecure in our region. And that money is also not going to make it back to the farms who is growing that food for those people and for everyone else in the community. This just accounts for one organization, Growing Places, in just one region, North Central Massachusetts, in just one state in the country. This problem is faced across the nation. As community members and legislators, we need consistent support for our friends and our neighbors. A HIP supplement for fiscal year 2025, a fully funded HIP program for 2026, and a lot of noise in DC to help honor the canceled contracts for the funding for farmers. We need Massachusetts to be a leader in a time when we don't have many leaders leading for those who don't have a voice about their food security. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Up next, we have Sadie Gore. There we are. There you are. And Ren Patel, who may or may not be speaking. They've kept us waiting.
Hi, I'm Sadie Gore. Last summer, I started working at a farm stand in Lancaster, Massachusetts called Harper's Farm and Garden. Harper's grows all its own food with the produce available ranging from juicy tomatoes to leafy kale to refreshing watermelon. Anything you buy there is healthy, fresh, and clean, and I know that because I probably washed it myself. People throughout the town surrounding Lancaster know this as well, and shoppers come from all over for Harper's produce, especially the locally famous sweet corn. I loved seeing my regular customers week after week at the farm stand. Many returned for more than just the flavor, since they knew they were guaranteed produce that was fresh picked and nutritious as well. I've grown up pretty privileged and have never had to worry about whether or not we'd have food on the table or if what we were eating was healthy. I had never even heard of the SNAP or HIP programs before I started working at Harper's. So I was actually a bit surprised at first at the number of customers who paid with EBT cards. As the weeks I worked there turned into months, that initial surprise led me to realize some things. I began to see how many people directly benefited from health plans like SNAP and HIP. Getting to meet and talk to these people, see them in their work uniforms and with their kids, discussing eagerly with me what they were going to make with their purchases, it all made me realize how indispensable programs like these are. I now have a deeper understanding of the inequality in nutritious food access in our community, and it shouldn't be this way. How can we stand by while something as crucial as healthy food remains out of reach for so many? Although I personally do not struggle with food access, I was excited to take this opportunity to advocate for those who can't. Healthy food shouldn't be a privilege, but a right. Benefit programs like HIP and SNAP are essential to thousands of households across North Central Massachusetts, and I got to learn this firsthand, seeing the impact they have on the people I see every week. Thank you for your time.
Hello everyone, my name is Ren Patel. I'm doing this a little bit off the cusp, so I apologize. But we've had a big theme of prevention today. A lot of people have talked about the things that we need to help maintain, the pillars that we already have and need to prevent from crumbling. And I want to talk about universal school lunch. This is easily one of the most important things that we have in Massachusetts to make sure that students can come to school and eat at least one meal. And for a lot of students, that is their only meal. The breakfast that they have in the morning when they come to school and the lunch that they have is what they get for the day, and we need to make sure we can at least afford them that because that is their right. And by no means should we be taking that away. Our lunch staff at LHS work incredibly hard to make sure all our students are being fed in this way, but of course, budget cuts have also been a very big problem recently, and we need to try and maintain things like farm to table. We need to make sure these programs are still in place because they are so pivotal to making sure that our students are fed. I think during this crisis of food access, we need to maintain this one safety net that we have, which is school lunches. So, thank you.
Not bad for, I don't know if I'm going to speak today. And those are both members of our Youth Advisory Council, and I am very proud of all of them. They do an amazing job. Next up, we have Leah Bradley from the Central Mass Housing Alliance, who's going to speak about the housing issues that we face. Good luck.
Good morning. Thank you, Chelsea, for asking me to speak, and thank you to our elected officials. So as you probably know, housing continues to be the #1 issue on folks' minds. And I've always said that what I would like to do is, at some point in my career, come here and give you all good news. You probably know today is not the day. So a couple of things that have just come out. So the median rent in the area just came out, and what I want to share with you is that the 80% of median rent went up, and 50 and 30 went down. So it tells you that there's a gap. There's a growing gap in the number of folks who are struggling to pay housing. About 1 in 4 folks in this area are extremely rent burdened, which means that they pay more than 50% of their income in rent, and they are at extreme risk of homelessness. We just did our point in time count. We did go up here in this region, and the fastest growing population are seniors. So we're seeing a lot of our seniors who either can't afford rent and are experiencing homelessness, or they can't afford the repairs in their homes. And so their homes are getting condemned and they can no longer live there. So the other thing that we're seeing right now is that children are, for the first time ever in Massachusetts, at the highest risk of living outdoors. So with the changes that are happening across the state, with some of the regulations, it's a real concern that we have. The impacts of homelessness are just lifelong for children and for anyone who experiences homelessness. You're going to hear from some folks today who have experienced homelessness, and I'm sure they'll share that with you too. So what you ask, what can we do now? Well, right now what we can do is we can prevent folks from becoming homeless. The RAFT program, we can keep somebody in their home for $7,000 a year, where homelessness costs about $100,000 a year. So investing in that program, increasing the amount, and also eliminating the barriers to folks being able to access that housing. Right now, folks have to have a notice to quit, which means they already have to be in the eviction process. We need to stop that from happening so that we're also not creating barriers to folks moving forward to not be able to get housing. That's what landlords are going to look at, and so we want to make sure that we're not setting folks up for failure. The other two programs that are really critical right now are the Massachusetts Rental Voucher Program and the Alternative Housing Voucher programs. Those keep folks in their housing, and it's long-term, and it's mostly folks who have disabilities or extremely low income. So just wanted to share that with all of you this morning. I'm hoping in the near future that I'll be able to come up and give you some better information about housing, but we really are experiencing a crisis, and with the things that are happening at the administration level, at the executive level in the federal government, we're really concerned about that, and we want to make sure we preserve all of the housing resources that we have to make sure our most vulnerable families can succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Up next, we have Tammy Arguelles. Thank you. It was easier for me to ask than say it wrong.
Bear with me. I hate doing this, but this is important to me. I'm going to make it quick, so I'm going to read fast. Sorry. Hello, and thank you all for being here. Some of you may already know me and my story, but for those of you who do not, my name is Tammy Arguelles. For the last 4 years, I've been working as a housing stabilization case manager supervisor for SMOC, North County. Although I have only been with SMOC for a short time, my passion for the work I do began long before that. 24 years ago, I became the founder of a great grassroots organization called Help for Our Community, also known as HFOC. This started with my late husband, Matthew Sr., my children, a few friends, and me wanted to make sure people often forgotten about on the holidays were fed a hot meal. We started by hosting Thanksgiving meal in the basement of an apartment complex that served low-income families. Throughout the holidays, HFOC has experienced more challenges than there should have been. It grew large and then settled down a bit. This small organization had a nonprofit status at the point and had community members who sat on the board. My home became overwhelmed with the amount of support, donations, and people who needed it. But even with all of this, I never felt like it was enough. There was never enough resources, never enough money, never enough time for all that HFOC was aiming to support. With the nonprofit status came miles of red tape and miles of red tape. My family and I became very overwhelmed, and the need with every hole that got filled, 3 more busted open. The board decided to disassemble and let the nonprofit go and get back to what we did best, just help. We went back to serving hot meals on Thanksgiving. Currently, we cook, package, and deliver those meals to anywhere from 500 to 800 people every year. It was a no-brainer when SMOC posted they were looking for a case manager for me to take the position, especially since my passion for it was so deeply ingrained in who I was. Throughout my time working with HFOC and SMOC, I have built many relationships with community members, organizations, and resources in the community. My list is a long one. Bear with me, I love my space. My list is a long one, but 7 years ago, I found myself homeless with my 2 children. How did this happen, you may be asking yourself, and sometimes I still wonder. For 2 months, I spent day in and day out applying for apartments, reaching out to resources, doing the checklist I give all my clients to do. I had been hoping for something to change. It was at this time in my life that I realized just how deep those resources and cracks were. We were fortunate enough to have friends and family help support us out of such a dark hole. I later then found SMOC. Pre-pandemic, the cracks I spoke of were deep, ran long, and were difficult to fill. Post-pandemic, I now have the opportunity to see what I had only hoped for all those years prior. Organizations all working together. Sorry. Instead of against each other. We share contacts, resources, information with each other. We realize that the common goal is to help the community and those most vulnerable in it. Even my work with SMOC and HFOC felt like I had to choose to be one without the other, but have been provided the space to let one help with the other and vice versa. I'm a part of a homeless hub meeting, thank you, Corey, and get to listen to these wonderful organizations discuss their work and the need for those that they work with. This is something I never thought I'd see. What was once a dream has now a reality. I am also fortunate enough to get a front row seat to witness the work in which SMOC has been doing. North County is a safe, non-judgmental, and fully supportive place for our clients to breathe. Now, I don't stay up at night worrying about sending people to a shelter that isn't safe and don't care about the clients. These clients are supported through amazing case managers that help them succeed, whatever that looks like for them. The back and forth, spinning around in circles has stopped for so many and truly has become a hand up, not a handout. To help you better understand, I want to share a story with you. We have a client. Stop. Sorry, guys. They told me to stop. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I hate doing that. Next up, we have Robert Marion.
Hello, my name is Robert Marion. I'm going to touch briefly on my experience with being homeless. I was homeless for approximately a year, a little over a year. And when it happened in March. And I figured, well, it's not going to be so bad. We're coming in the springtime. Summer's coming right around the corner. I had been camping my whole life. I quickly learned that it was camping without the fun. A lot of things happen when you are not housed. But due to some of the folks down at the drop-in center in Fitchburg and Leaders of Restoration, they helped find me housing. And I'm working towards finding my own apartment. I'm currently in a room right now, but at least I'm not in a tent. And I have a few people to thank for that. Keith Barnaby, outreach worker, Cara at the sheriff's office, all the folks down at Leaders of Restoration, and all the folks down at the drop-in center were a big help, and I would probably still not be housed if it wasn't for these folks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. Up next, we have transportation, and we're going to hear from Katie Johnson from the Winchendon Council on Aging.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. As Chelsea said, I'm Katie Johnson, and I'm the Town Transportation Coordinator for Winchendon, Mass. I'm here to speak to you today about the importance of transportation in creating equitable access for the people of our region, especially in rural communities like mine. Transportation is integral to every aspect of our lives. We can't begin to talk about health and equity in our region without bringing affordable and reliable transportation to the forefront of this conversation. In rural communities, traditional fixed bus routes often do not meet the needs of residents, and fragmented and inadequate transportation options directly affect our residents' ability to access healthcare, employment, and other essential services. With no grocery stores in Winchendon, residents are forced to travel outside the community for food, which is especially difficult for those without a personal vehicle. Due to this, Winchendon has severe nutrition-related chronic illness rates. And additionally, many families in Winchendon are unable to access employment or education without reliable transit options. To change this, we need to work towards universal basic mobility. This is the basic belief that everyone should be entitled to a foundational level of mobility, regardless of geographic location or income. We must reject the notion that people should not live in rural communities unless they have the means to own their own vehicle. Instead, people should have access to reliable and affordable transportation wherever they choose to live. In Winchendon, we are working towards universal basic mobility through a relatively new kind of transit system called microtransit. We were awarded a grant from MassDOT 1 year ago to create the Community Connector, a demand response microtransit system built by and for Winchendon residents. After a year of really hard work from our dedicated team, we are finally ready to launch the Community Connector to the public next month, and we are super excited. Since receiving the grant about a year ago, we went from an average about 250 rides a month to 750 last month. And we've done that with one dispatcher, two full-time drivers, 2 part-time, and 2 volunteer drivers. And these rides have included bringing folks to grocery stores, healthy food options, medical appointments, school, and employment. You're actually going to hear from one of our riders next, and I could go on and on about the amazing work our team has done. But in the interest of time, I'd also like to talk about the microtransit bill, H3658, instead. This bill would establish a one-time commission to study microtransit, and the proposed commission would create a definition for microtransit in Massachusetts, and it would as well study funding options and limitations for microtransit systems in Massachusetts. Right now, we mostly rely on grants, and this might open up different funding options for us. This commission would also explore microtransit as a way to close mobility gaps in rural areas, enhance connectivity, and address inequities, essentially what we are all here to talk about today. I ask that you please call your state senators and our representatives to advocate for this bill, and I look forward to running our Community Connector in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And if you have a minute, check out that transportation flyer that's in your folder, because there's a lot going on in transportation right now, and we're really proud of the work that's happening. I'm going to invite Joe Williams up to speak about his experience as a rider.
Thank you. I got asked to be here today to talk about our transportation service in Winchendon.
You're a lot taller than me.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was nervous to be here today because I'm not into, oh my goodness, into public speaking that much, but I am so thankful for our transportation service in Winchendon because it have helped me a lot over the last year. I work in AFOL and all that at the movie theater and all that, and unfortunately during last year I lost my mother, who was my only reliable source of transportation. She brought me back and forth to work every single day, including my dad for doctor appointments. Unfortunately as well, I was out of the job for a couple months. And it's not a thing that I like to remember over a year. But a couple months after, grieving all that crap, I got reached out from the Winchendon community and all that for rides and all that, and it have been a big impact from everyone that worked there. I get rides from work to days a week, and sometime getting out of the house with my dad and all that, who have Parkinson's and scoliosis, and who is here today with me. I'm just so grateful for it till the day, and I wrote a longer speech than this, but there's so much to say with how much they have done that there's no words to say besides that every cent should go their way by now. So, and I'm so thankful for Katie and everyone that worked for our transportation service in town. And I hope it do continue because I need money, people.
Straight to the point. Very well said. Up next, we are going to speak about mental and behavioral health, and we have Kim Robles. Kim, do we have Kim? Yes, there's Kim. Okay, you're here. From Movimento Counseling Services.
Not sure if I could follow that. That was amazing. Let's just take a breath for a moment. And just look to your right and say thank you to the person next to you. And then look to your left and say thank you to the person that's next to you. When was the last time that you were looked at and someone said thank you? We're working really, really hard. I have to say that what I'm about to share, what everyone already shared, was really important. So if there's lack of housing, if there's lack of nutrition, if there's a lack of educational support, if there is a lack of transportation, if there is a lack of finances, I am here to represent not just me and the people that are behind me that I also represent. I represent mental health for the BIPOC, the Black, Indigenous people of color. I represent those that are not seen or heard. I represent those that are part of our network, that support our network group. But when they come to me at my private practice and they call and they say, Miss Kim, I can't get to you because I don't have transportation. Miss Kim, I can't get to you because I have to work, so I can't get my child to their appointment with you to make sure that they get what they need for anxiety, stress, depression, suicide, addiction, and recovery. Miss Kim, nobody is listening to me as a parent at the education meetings for their 504 and for their special education services. I'm here because God asked me to be. I represent Him because He put me in charge as a servant of my community. I am from North Central Mass. I was raised in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. I was low middle class. Thank you for the 30 seconds. Some of you, I have sat in a room. Some of you have called me. Some of you, I have called you because my client said they needed support. Chelsea and I have had many emails, many conversations. I have sat and I have been with you, but I can't do any of the work that I do at this moment without you. So be well. Take a breath. Eat well so we can continue to support our community. I care very much about you. God bless you, and I will see you soon. You'll hear my voice.
Thank you so much, Kim. Up next, we have Sarah Kaizo-Pike, who is another member of my Youth Advisory Council. She's a veteran member of my Youth Advisory Council, and she is stepping into the role of Youth Coordinator. Announcing it for the first time, our current Youth Coordinator, Nashri Peralta, who started with us on the Youth Council last year, is moving and is passing the torch on to Sarah.
First, I want to say thank you, Chelsea, and thank you guys for this opportunity to speak. I'm going to try not to get emotional because this has been a really difficult few months, and seeing the impact of the funding cuts has been devastating in our community. Hello, my name is Sarah Kaizo-Pike. I am from Pepper, Massachusetts, and I live with mental illness. I have struggled with eating disorders, depression, anxiety, and PTSD since I was 14. During that time, I have experienced multiple supports, including Department of Mental Health Services, psychiatric treatment, therapy, and crisis response. As someone who understands these systems, who deeply understands these systems aren't perfect, I also understand without a doubt these services are life-saving. I would not be alive without these services that have been there exactly when I needed them. I have had an incredible therapist for 4 years, and I don't say it lightly when I tell you she has saved my life multiple times. There are so many times when I didn't want to be here, where I felt like the world was better off without me. I was a burden, or that I was in just too much pain that I couldn't handle it. I have gone through so much trauma in my life, years of pain and hurting. Sometimes it was too much. If you know me, you know I fight hard and I don't give up. So when I do, it's devastating and takes me a bit to pick myself back up. But sometimes I couldn't do it myself, so I got a hand up. I am here today because of mental health care, and so are your loved ones. Mental health is still very stigmatized, so it is hard to see the impact of these services. But the unwavering reality is that everyone knows they are there if they need it. These services are some that keep people across our community alive, but not just alive, but able to thrive. I strongly urge you to oppose cuts to DMH, 988, Medicaid, and other life-saving treatments and programs, and endorse funding increases that save these people in our community. I am not one, I am many. If you are comfortable and able, I want you to stand up if you or someone you love has been impacted by mental illness or suicide. Thank you. You can sit down. This is how prevalent this need is in our community. And this is why we have to fight for mental health care. I hope we can not only keep these programs stable, but one day expand them so that everyone has the ability to access all types of mental health care. No one should ever feel alone in their suffering. Mental health has touched everyone and will continue to touch every single person here and all across Massachusetts. I am just one voice when I share my story, and I am an advocate in my community, but together we are many. Together we are able to create the change we wish to see in the world. It's time to get in good trouble. Thank you.
Sarah's always an amazing speaker. For education equity, we have next up Brendan Keenan from Fitchburg Public Schools.
Thank you. Just want to recognize the powerful testimony of Sarah. Very difficult, impossible to follow. So my name is Brendan Keenan. I'm the Director of Social Emotional Learning for the Fitchburg Public Schools. I appreciate the opportunity today to talk about our 5,453 children in our school system. When they enter our schools, we sometimes refer to them as students, but first and foremost, they are always, wherever they go, children. I mentioned the number of the children in our district, but to us, they're not just numbers, they're not just percentages, they're not ink on a page. They are children with goals and dreams, aspirations and anxieties, as well as many fears. They're developing with the help of their loving parents, guardians, community groups like we see here today. They are human beings. About 4,200 of our children are people of color. About 1,100 of our students are English language learners. We have 40 languages represented in our children and families. We are so proud of these languages and this diversity, and we celebrate it. The diversity of our children goes beyond their race, skin, color, and ethnicity. Our children learn in different ways from one another. They understand the world differently. They demonstrate perseverance and resilience in different ways. They problem solve differently. They enjoy different hobbies from one another. They express and manage their emotions differently. They're open, curious, and they seek to understand the world around them. The diversity of our children is a huge asset and a strength. A free and appropriate public education matters. The arc of educational policy in the United States has bent towards equal access and inclusion. Today, many of these policies are being threatened. I am very, very worried. I'm deeply worried about the impact of the harmful public rhetoric about immigrants and people of color and what that's having on our children and families in Fitchburg and beyond. I worry about the policies to protect the peace of mind and ensure their access to basic needs, breaking the cycles of hunger and poverty. I worry about the policies that impact people in our community and create a chilling effect for parents who are doing everything they can to help their children thrive. Policies and practices that cause parents to delay timely health care for their families due to fear, increasing their risk for serious illness. And what I'm talking about is not a political position. There should be no aisles in this scenario. There are no acronyms that should distract us from what is central here. This is a matter of basic human rights and the inherent dignity and worth of every person. So I think about the advice that Mr. Rogers' mother gave to him. Look for the helpers during scary times. You'll always find people who are helping. There's a room full of them here this morning. And I absolutely am touched and inspired by what we're hearing this morning. The most important indicator of how we're doing as a society is how we are supporting our children. Yes, we need funding to run our schools effectively. We need federal, state, and local departments that enhance the quality of our education, including the Department of Education. But in order to do so, we need empathic people in positions of power and influence to know the real stories of our children and families and present them as the individuals, the human beings that they are. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. Up next, we have Michael Barrientos, who is another member of our Youth Advisory Council.
Hello, everybody. I've always been considered to be the white sheep. The names Gringo and Canchito constantly rang in my ears, sending chills to the rest of my being. A permanent reminder of how I contrast my relatives. Family photos felt to be my biggest predator. I avoided them as a sheep would a wolf. I'm my biggest threat. I strive for a successful life, yet through burnout and self-insecurities, I've fragmented my self-worth, leaving me exhausted. I live the pressures of overworking myself and fearing my constant determination for a rewarding future will never suffice. My people with rich, angelic brown skin that shimmered in the sun did not feel like my people, as they never allowed me to forget my awkward and pale complexity that burns on hot summer days. Our differences were endless. Confused strangers would ask me and my younger siblings if we shared a father while giving me a half-pitiful look. The answer is no. While they share one father, I was left an isolated outsider. Everyone reminds me that pressure forms diamonds. The perfect jewel adored by all are formed by a force large enough to damage other materials. When hearing this message from my mother, however, I'd be left shaken. As the eldest child in a Hispanic family, I carry the pressures of family expectations and succession, doing so independently, appearing picture perfect. From a young age, it was engraved. Everyone, including my parents and siblings, relied on me for a better life. It is expected of me to earn high grades and get into university, while juggling 2 jobs, 3 sports, a student council role, and caring for my siblings. From afar, I hold the perfect roles: assistant manager, swim captain, at-large, and oldest sibling. Like the rock on a ring, I maintained my grace, not due to pleasure from my overwhelming schedule, but to my mother's growing expectations. I was constantly reminded of my duties, leaving me no time to breathe. Resting meant weakness, that I'd be hurting my family and serving of no use. I was never allowed to cry. My mother made sure. Silently, I drowned. I constantly found myself lost and drenched in guilt if I allowed myself more than a couple hours of sleep. However, it was the questioning strangers who guided me to the realization that I did have a connection with my family and relatives. one that even my Hispanic-appearing cousins and siblings lacked. I spoke Spanish. Now, my relationship and passion for languages grows every day as I'm constantly developing new vocabulary for now 4 different languages. There are 2 different kinds of diamonds, natural and lab-grown. Natural diamonds form after 1 billion years and are significantly more valuable than lab-grown diamonds formed within a few weeks. With the help of others and my family, I've realized that seeking support is now acceptable. Like a natural diamond, I intend to form my own path, taking feedback at my own rate. I've learned it is necessary to take breaks, to recharge my strengths. I continue with my roles, but I do so to pave my own path. I am not an outcast sheep, but simply carbon shaping into a valuable stone, now allowing myself to cry when necessary. Thank you.
I see you out there. I have learned waterproof mascara is a must for these events. I am going to call up, Jason Parsekian, from Alyssa's place.
I always botches it the first time. Yes, I am tall. How you doing, everyone? My name is Jason Parsekian. I am the Assistant Program Director at Alyssa's Place Peer Recovery Center in Gardner, Massachusetts. We are a recovery center that helps people who struggle with addiction. We are open to, helping them get, resumes, try to get back on their feet, just like me, because I was one of those people who were homeless. I was a person who had no hope. If it wasn't for people that helped me, we hear about people with the EBT and housing. These are things that I struggled to find, but then eventually got help to do and become the person I am today. I'm here to speak about education. So if it wasn't for the Mount Wachusett Community College, which also helped me start to work on my substance abuse counseling certificate and hopefully become a licensed drug and alcohol counselor, I wouldn't have thought that I would be able to do that. I had a very limited belief about myself. The stigma about drugs and alcohol kept me very small, and I didn't think I would have these opportunities today. If it wasn't for people that helped me when I couldn't help myself, I wouldn't be where I am today. I'm here to share some hope with people and also show that recovery is possible. I was that homeless heroin addict that thought that that's just all I was. And here I am before you, and I appreciate it, and I want to show you that recovery is possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tristan Floyd, Mount Wachusett Community College student.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tristan Floyd. My journey with furthering my education began in 2016. I had decided to go to Quinsigamond Community College without an idea on what I wanted to do. I figured I would just take the prerequisites and figure the rest out from there. My plan was not fully carried out due to my substance use disorder. I decided to prioritize substances over not just my education, but my well-being. It took me 5 years until I decided to surrender to my disease and take responsibility of my life. In 2021, I entered treatment. At this time, I knew things were different than the past attempts because I genuinely wanted it. Having this factor is what made the true change. Once I built a foundation for myself in recovery and connected to individuals that saw my full potential before I truly could, I was encouraged to get my LADAC too, which I did. After successfully completing my LADAC, I was suggested to go back to college, and I took full advantage of it. On my journey of obtaining my human services degree, the Mass Reconnect program was created and made available to me. The opportunities Mass Reconnect has given me are endless. It has allowed me to secure my education without the burden of the financial responsibility that previously had fallen on my family and I. Between working full-time while raising my son and maintaining my recovery, I was only capable of taking 2 classes a semester. While enduring this journey, because it has been a journey between online classes and in-person classes, I'm proud to say I'll be graduating in December and walking the stage in 2026. Yeah. Receiving an education provided by the Mass Reconnect has allowed me to set a standard not only within myself, but with my son. Doing this allows me to show him the importance of finishing something you started. Before concluding, I'd like to take the time to thank Mass Reconnect, the amazing staff at Mount Wachusett Community College, as well as the community support I continue to receive. Thank you.
Thank you, Tristan. Up next, we have community safety, and we are going to talk with Tara Heward from the YWCA.
Good morning, everyone. Why domestic violence services, right? I could be here all week to talk to you about what survivors need, what is lacking for our survivors, but I believe I only have 3 minutes. So I'm going to focus on 2 pieces of legislation that are very important to survivors and that we really need support on. One of them, as the Director of Domestic Violence Services, I sit on a subcommittee for the Governor's Council to assess domestic violence. And when we were in one meeting to revamp the 2017 guidelines for law enforcement, which, by the way, are very outdated, I noticed that the definition of strangulation was lacking. In the state of Massachusetts, it did not compare to the federal definition. So I immediately reached out to Senator Kennedy, and I said, I need your help. Survivors need your help. So thank you, Senator Kennedy, for hearing us. And she has put forth a bill it is an act to address the definition of strangulation in the state of Massachusetts. Why is this important, people may think? Strangulation is on the rise for those who are experiencing domestic violence. It is an ultimate power and control tactic used by abusers. And if you imagine holding an egg in your hand and you squeeze that egg, it's about 5 pounds of pressure to crack that egg. 5 pounds of pressure is what it takes to take somebody's life. Right now, in the state of Massachusetts, strangulation charges is the very first thing to be dropped down to a misdemeanor crime, when it should be a felony. So thank you, Senator Kennedy, for hearing us. The other one that is very important was put forth by Senator Moore. So thank you to Senator Moore, although he is not here. And it is abusive litigation. This is a tactic that is used by perpetrators constantly in our courts, mostly in family and probate court. Currently, I have a who I am working effortless, and thank you, Representative Higgins, for supporting us also. Their ex-husband, they are in the process of a divorce, and their ex-husband has used the family and probate court to torture them. How are they doing this? They're filing motion after motion after motion. She is not represented by any kind of legal force. He has an attorney. He can afford the attorney. She cannot. We have tried every outlet available for low-income representation, and we are hitting wall after wall. One of the craziest things for this, and I'll wrap up, is they go to trial in family and probate court in July. Just recently, he and his attorney filed 20 motions to bring her back to court before the trial date. Thank goodness a judge opened their eyes and saw that this was ridiculous, and they put in a gatekeeper motion. This exists now, however, judges right now can pick and choose when they're going to use it. With the abusive litigation bill, they will have to follow this protocol. So thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Up next, we have Rocio from the Spanish American Center.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. Some of the most important programs that the Spanish American Center have issues are the food pantry program, in which over the past month, attendance has increasing from an average of 30 families to 70 families every day. Unfortunately, our food supply is counting down because we have not had USDA food over the past month. The Emergency Food and Shelter Program, a federal government initiative supporting food and shelters program, is on hold. We use this fund to pay our clients utilities, rentals, shelter, and food assistance. We submit our proposal for the grant every year, but our expectations across the country is that it will be less than the previous years. Concerning immigration, our immigrant clients receive free legal assistance in our office. However, the fear of deportation has resulted in lower attendance in our school programs for children. Regarding our domestic violence program, one of the barriers to seeking help immigrants is the immigration fear of deportation. As a result, we expect more victims to feel isolated in the following months, and less victims looking for help. Everyone knows that provisional shelters for domestic violence victims have been an issue over the past years. Currently, more shelters are closing, and we don't have enough places to accommodate victims at risk. People come to our center with many questions, but we often don't have many answers. We are living in a situation in which many people wake up with a sense of purpose in life, but without any perspective on what tomorrow will bring. Thank you.
Okay, I peeked at the time and we're only 5 minutes over. That's not terrible. Okay, up next we have Anna Wilkins from the North County Land Trust, who's going to speak about climate justice.
Thanks very much. I know we're running a little behind, so I'll make my remarks fairly brief. And I am going to take the stance of talking from the standpoint of the land, and I want to acknowledge that we live in a beautiful part of the world, and also the traditional land of the Nipmuc people. But I'm also here representing thousands of constituents, from municipal employees and volunteers to landowners to environmental and justice community members to farmers, who all understand that we can't have healthy, resilient communities without healthy, resilient environments. So how we think about, plan around, and develop our land in our communities directly affects the health and well-being of our people. So from this point of view, I also want to say that the state has taken some bold policy moves around which land conservation work fits into that. From 30 by 30 to the biodiversity plan, to significantly decarbonizing our grid by 2050, to greening the gateway cities, to the farm action plan. And all of these things have touch points upon every single subject that we talked about, everybody else has talked about previously. But recently I was talking with a open space committee member from Shirley, the community of Shirley, who was explaining that there were opportunities for policies such as the 40B development to have some loopholes closed. Housing and conservation can go hand in hand if communities can feel supported to do so. A recent 40B development came in, and only 10 out of the 40 units was actually affordable. But that developer was allowed to skirt local protections for their resource areas. So while the communities understand they need the affordable housing, we can't also then compromise our local communities' abilities to protect their resource areas and their communities in that way. I also just want to say that the environmental bond bill is coming up this year, and it's really important that that gets funded at the highest level possible. I want to commend the Department of Conservation Services for offering a conservation assistance grant program for the first time this year, which allows communities to hire out and contract work to allow them to apply for grants at the state level, because obviously we know our communities are limited in capacity. And when you're thinking about food and transportation and housing and all of these other things, conservation falls down to the bottom, even though it's fundamental to everything. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to continuing conversations around this.
Anna stole my agenda, but I happen to know that the last person we have speaking is Carolyn Sellers.
Thank you. I'm a very long-time resident of North Central Mass, and in my retirement, I'm continuing my hobby of civic engagement, helping the Health Equity Partnership and others in the region talk about climate justice. So climate justice, as Anna just said, it's inextricably intertwined with all the social determinants of health that we've talked about today. We humans, we're not separate from the environment, we're part of it. So impacts in one problem ripple out into other areas. Also, climate problems are not going to go away just because some folks in Washington don't want us to talk about them. Luckily, we live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where we aren't afraid to take on hard problems and address them directly. I'm going to start sharing some good news today, things you don't hear about in the news, things that don't jive with the Project 2025 initiatives. Polls taken after the 2024 election show that 86% of all voters, including 76% of Trump voters, oppose attempts at weakening the Environmental Protection Agency. 74% support the U.S. economy's transition from fossil fuels to 100% clean energy by 2050. 63% say developing sources of clean energy should be a priority for the president and for Congress. Another piece of good news we don't hear enough about is that we already have the solutions to solve our climate and biodiversity crises. And many of these solutions address problems in other areas. For example, planting trees can help sequester carbon pollution, reduce urban heat island effects, provide habitat, can aid in mental health, and provide jobs. Creating an effective mobility transportation system for our region will address our major source of carbon pollution. 51% of the carbon pollution in our region comes from transportation sources. And it also addresses a major driver of health inequity. Please talk to your friends and families about these things, because we don't hear enough about this on the news. Staffing and funding for these things continue to be an issue, particularly for our rural and small communities. We need to find sustainable and reliable funding sources, particularly when we cannot rely on the federal government to help. There are currently several legislative proposals that can help us here in Massachusetts. We probably need them all, but I'm going to talk about one today, the Climate and Community Resilience Fund, House Senate Bill 572, House Bill 938. Because I've represented this partnership in the coalition that developed it over the past couple years. This bill would establish a small fee on real estate property insurance to provide the consistent long-term funding we need. The funds would go into a trust fund to support solutions addressing the causes and impacts of our climate problem, focusing on community-identified projects. We know there's public support for caring for the earth, And now we need to, as Sarah said, make the good trouble and make these things happen. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. We are running a little bit behind. We are not going to have time for questions for our legislators. We are going to have them come up for the legislative panel. I will play the welcome message from Congresswoman Lori Trahan while you all get seated.
Good morning. I'm Congresswoman Lori Trahan, and I'm so glad to be joining you all virtually this morning for the Health Equity Partnership of North Central Massachusetts Legislative Breakfast. While I'm disappointed I can't be with you all in person, I am grateful to Chelsea for the opportunity to be part of this important conversation. And I also want to thank all of you for the work that you're doing to improve health outcomes across our region. And I want to especially thank Congressman McGovern and our state delegation, who have been consistently incredible partners in this work. At the core of everything I do in Congress is a deep commitment to the health, safety, and well-being of families, both here in North Central Massachusetts and throughout our Commonwealth. Every day, I'm working for a future where every person, no matter their background or zip code, has access to high-quality, affordable health care that they need and deserve. As a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee's Health Subcommittee, I have the privilege of working on legislation that can move the needle for working families, especially those who too often fall through the cracks of our healthcare system. I'm proud to write, introduce, and advance bills that help break down the barriers so many people face when trying to access care. Because I firmly believe that healthcare is a right, not a privilege. No one should ever have to choose between getting treatment and going bankrupt. That's why I introduced the Reinforcing Essential Health Systems for Communities Act, a bipartisan bill that will open the door to more federal support for our safety net hospitals, facilities that serve high numbers of uninsured and low-income patients. This proposal will be especially important as we work to restore services in the Neshoba Valley, where folks are still reeling from the Stewart Health Care disaster. I also believe that every child, regardless of where they live, should be able to get the life-saving care they need. That's why I reintroduced the Accelerating Kids Access to Care Act earlier this year, a common-sense bill that will help families of children with complex medical conditions like pediatric cancer access the life-saving care that they need, even if they have to travel for it. And just last week, I teamed up with colleagues on both sides of the aisle to reintroduce the BRAIN Act, legislation that will strengthen research, improve treatments, and expand access to care for people battling malignant brain tumors. While I continue to push those bills forward, I'm also working to mitigate the damage being done to our health system by the Trump administration. Over the past few weeks, we've seen Elon Musk and Donald Trump fire federal pandemic response teams, birth defect monitors, and chronic disease experts. And that's happening with our country in the midst of the deadliest measles outbreak in history. I'm laser focused on holding this rogue administration accountable for these devastating policy choices and protecting Americans' access to care. Each of you are remarkable partners in that work. Your work is instrumental to helping our community stay healthy, and your advocacy, partnership, and persistence are what drive progress. Let's keep working together, sharing stories, building coalitions, and developing real concrete solutions that make a lasting impact. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all in person soon.
So what I'm going to do now is ask each one of our legislators, you can do it from the table, you can stand, you're probably blocked by the podium, so I'm going to introduce Congressman McGovern. I would like each one of you to just give a couple of remarks, either responding to something that you heard today or something that you would really like to address to us all in just a few minutes. Okay, right. I know you.
I know. You said 30 minutes? First, I want to thank Chelsea, and I want to thank all of you for the incredible work that you do. I want to thank my colleagues in the state legislature here for all the fights that they have on Beacon Hill. But let's just cut to the chase. We're in one hell of a fight right now, and there's no denying that. At the federal level, we're facing several major threats Trump and Musk are decimating programs and agencies that feed, shelter, and educate people. Trump has started a trade war that will increase prices for food, for everyday goods. We're going to see that in the not too distant future. And yesterday, the Republicans passed a budget that cuts up to $1 trillion out of Medicaid. That cuts $230 billion out of the SNAP program. That goes after our environmental protection programs. And I could go on and on and on. The administration has paused money for food banks. As prices continue to go up, it is unconscionable that they're doing that at this point. He's trying to dismantle the Department of Education. He's fired half of the department staff, leaving the agency without enough people to administer the programs that help our kids here in North Central Mass get a good education. And Republicans are claiming they want to give the power back to in education back to the states. Well, here's a news flash. The power is already with the states. There's no national curriculum in the United States, but we need the staff at the Department of Education to administer programs like Title I and special education, not to mention other programs in the Department of Education like Pell Grants. At a time of skyrocketing housing costs and a shortage of available homes and apartments, Trump and Musk are also tearing apart the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We've heard they're planning to fire 84% of the workforce in total, including nearly everyone who works in the Boston HUD office that serves all of New England. I mean, these cuts include HUD's CDBG disaster relief program staff, by the way, who provided $6.4 million in grants to help recover from the floods here in central Massachusetts. Again, this budget passed narrowly, 2016 to 214 yesterday. Again, cuts in Medicaid, SNAP. I go right down the list. But here is the deal. This is going to happen unless we all actually stand up and fight back. And I get it, nobody wants to be a target, but I have news for you. You're already all are targets. The stuff they're doing in immigration is unconscionable. Sending people to an unknown prison in El Salvador with no due process. This is serious, folks. This is serious. I've never, ever seen anything like this. And so I look forward to working with you, to elevating the stories that you have told here today, to try to convince some of my colleagues. If we can get 4 of them to stand with us, we can stop some of this stuff. But this is a fight. This is a fight. We have never, ever, ever seen anything like this. And if we're not up for the battle, we're going to lose. The people we all represent are going to lose. We can't afford to let that happen. Again, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Congressman. Tough message to follow. I'm Robin Kennedy, State Senator for the 1st Worcester District, predominantly serving the majority of the city of Worcester, as well as 5 surrounding communities, of which Berlin and Bolton are the only 2 that really are part of North Central Mass. But I'm so grateful to be here with you all today because I'm somebody who recognizes that the success of Worcester relies on the success of Fitchburg and Leominster and Gardner and Springfield and Pittsfield. And I say that in part here today because a couple of the messages that I took away, one is regional equity. It is not and should not be taken for granted that there is a fight in Boston around making sure that we have regional equity. Just to give a fine point on that, when we look at the supplemental budget for the Fair Share Amendment, $780 million out of $1.3 billion to the MBTA, $25 million to RTAs across the state. We need regional equity because we need to invest in microtransit. We need to invest in ensuring that every single one of our residents in all of Central Mass, in Western Mass, have access to robust, reliable, daily public transportation because it not just benefits ability of folks to get to work, but it also helps and benefits our environment, helps our economy grow. And it shouldn't just be a nice to have outside of Boston. It should be something that every resident in this Commonwealth should rely on. I do want to speak a little bit, thank you. I do want to speak a little bit following the Congressman's message and certainly in terms of funding. There's no question we are in a crisis point. Just to get a fine point to that, year over year growth in Medicaid in Massachusetts alone is $2.5 billion. year-over-year growth, 72% of which is reimbursed by the federal government. The entirety of our rainy day fund is $8.2 billion. So even just looking at year-over-year growth, we could barely scratch the surface of the cuts that were mentioned when it comes to Medicaid. We have to be able to figure out how to be able to respond. I joined the congressman in saying we have to fight. There's no time for complacency. There's no time for nicety. It's time to get up and fight back, because Massachusetts will not be able to weather the storm if Congress moves, well, I'll say the president, because I know we have got champions fighting for us in Congress here, moves forward with the cuts, the devastating cuts that they're talking about. The other important message I want to emphasize here that I heard repeatedly in so many stories, and I want to say a huge shout out to our young people. You spoke so incredibly well, and it is your stories. It is your future that we're here fighting for, so thank you for bringing voice to that. And I want to say thank you again. I kind of jumped right into it. Thank you for having us here, Chelsea, and for the conversation. I want to focus on prevention. It was mentioned time and time again. We know that prevention inevitably, name the policy, housing, food insecurity, the environment, transportation. Prevention is not only more compassionate, but for those that doesn't sell for, it is also more cost effective. Leah made the fine point. $7,000 to keep a family in the home, $100,000 to disrupt, destroy, dismantle their life by forcing them into a shelter system. God bless our shelter providers for the wonderful work they do, but we know it is disruptive for families, and we know we can do better. And so at this time of great financial constraint, we need to be emphasizing that we can do more and do better and be smarter about how we're using our dollars. We often go with the Band-Aid, the safety net approach, because we know someone's gonna need shelter, we wanna have that shelter bed. But we have to fight to make sure that we're fixing our system so that families don't have to go to shelter to be able to get the resources and the help that they need. And also the last point I'll make, because I know I've got a bunch of colleagues here, the other piece I would just want folks to take away, all the bills that you heard speak to the fact that Massachusetts is moving forward. We're not rolling back our values. We're not looking backwards. We're not acquiescing to a federal administration that's hell-bent on destroying who we are. The policies that we have and that are before the legislature that I'm sure my colleagues will talk about is about making a better, safer, healthier, stronger, more equitable community for all of our residents, regardless of how long they've been here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. One of the best parts of my job is I get to work with people like Senator Kennedy and my colleagues in the House of Representatives at the State House. But I'll start by just saying, I think there are 435 members of Congress, but not every community and not every district has a leader that represents them in Washington. In between Congresswoman Lori Trahan and Congressman Jim McGovern, we could not have better fighters and better representation. So thank you so much for being here this morning, Congressman. Where's Joe Williams at? Joe, where are you? Joe, don't ever let anybody tell you that you're not an outstanding public speaker. Can we? So what you conveyed and what you expressed in a more poignant way than I think I ever could or am capable of is the dignity in work, right? And Joe's story tells us all about how public investment in transportation is a public good, but allows Joe to go to work, as Joe said, make some money, and helps everybody in our community meet their full potential. So one thing that I am very proud of that we've done, and we've worked with Representative Higgins and Kilcoyne and Scarsdale on between the House and the Senate, is I think this is the third fiscal year that we have eliminated fares at our regional transportation authorities. That is a big deal. And so every day when I leave my house in Fitchburg and I drive to my office in Leominster, I go down Route 12, right? And for the past 3 years, there's been fare-free public transportation on the buses on Route 12. So what does that mean for working families? What do you have access to that there was a barrier to before? You pass Market Basket, leaving Fitchburg on Water Street, which has a great deli, by the way, and I think the best Italian sandwich you can find in the area. But you continue and you pass Jeff Roberge and Mass Hire, and you have access to workforce development programs. And at the Mass Hire site, you can enroll in class at Mount Wachusett Community College. You have access to Bruno Fisher and other MART resources. You pass Leominster Hospital. So you have access to groceries, workforce development, community college, healthcare, mental health care, and we've eliminated those barriers. So when we invest in public goods, we are investing in working families, and we're helping people like Joe Williams and all of us meet our full potential. So those are the things that we are focused on in the State House. Those are the things that local, state, and federal partners that we are talking about and we are trying to sustain today in a really crazy, chaotic environment in this country. I see Mayor Squalia here too. Mayor, when you come and you talk to us, you ask for more money or less money, right?
We need more money.
We need, right. So we are committed to delivering resources at the state and federal level to help our communities, and as Senator Kennedy said, to move us all forward. And please know that in this delegation and these people and these fighters who are on stage with me, you're going to have that commitment, and we're going to fight with everything we got.
I'm going to try and speed it up by using the mic here because I know that everyone has busy mornings. Thank you so much for being generous with your time and generous with your stories. That is what makes good legislation possible. Those of us up here are managing more than 6,000 bills, and it is really hard to get those bills to the finish line. And one of the best parts of being a part of this delegation is that there's so much collaboration across it. We're in Rep. Kuchmarik's district, and I get to work with him on 2 bills now related to helping single-family homeowners and small landlords green retrofit their houses to reduce their energy costs. We've gotten pilot funding from that and gotten to see that rolled out. Now more than ever, that is necessary. And we're getting to work on new legislation inspired by our constituents to help renters provide more childcare to other renters. We should be using the space that we already have and making it a whole lot easier in areas where transportation is still a challenge, no matter how much we try to invest in those structures. I get to work with Rep. Kilcoyne on a student-led piece of legislation that codifies mental health education in our law and expands access. I get to work with Rep. Scarsdale on legislation, a pretty simple idea, I think, for this room, that if an essential service is essential to the community, a hospital shouldn't be able to close it. And so this is just a really special delegation to be a part of. We're heading into what everyone is cautioning is a really tough budget year. I'm going all in on food insecurity, fighting for money for growing places in our local food pantries. I had to have a sad joke with the Ways and Means Chair that I said I came to you with housing insecurity last year. Thanks for the money. We haven't quite figured that out yet, but now I'm coming to you because my community needs food. I've been doing this for 9 years. I thought it would get easier. It doesn't. I'm really grateful to be in this room with all of you. I got to be in this room with you many years ago when I was a teen counselor at Pathways for Change as a member of the CHNA9, and so thank you for all your work. I'm just really grateful to be with you.
I also am going to stay seated. It's still somewhat early in the morning, so I'll take advantage of having the mic right here. Hello, everybody. My name is Meg Kilcoyne. I represent the 12th Worcester District. That includes the towns of Berlin, Boylston, Clinton, Lancaster, Sterling, and one part of Northborough. And I'm joined by 2 of my senators here today, which is always wonderful. And I always consider myself lucky, kind of what both Senator Cronin and Senator Kenny were talking about. My district is right between Leominster, Fitchburg, and Worcester. So my district really feels that tension of and that need really to make sure that we're all speaking with one voice in all of central Massachusetts, because the vitality of Worcester and the vitality of Leominster and Fitchburg impact my district directly. And we're really, struggle sometimes with making sure that those communities are all talking to each other. And one thing that I think is so wonderful about this event is that when we look at health equity through everyone here is looking at it from a holistic standpoint. It's not just about hospitals, it's about climate justice, it's about mental health, it's about transportation. The speaker, and I apologize, you were amazing, and I'm blanking on your name, but talking about the need to have access to transportation. Years ago when I was campaigning, I went up to a house with a Trump sign on it, so I'm thinking this is gonna be a rough conversation. Turns out the biggest issue that was important to him was he recently, he was an older man, his wife was going through health problems, he needed access to transportation to get to the senior center, to get to his doctor's appointments, and that was the thing that was most important to him. We all in this room know that regardless of whatever your political affiliation is, what's happening in Washington, D.C. is not going to help anybody. And we have to make sure that we are reminding our friends and our neighbors and our communities what policies actually will improve the lives of everybody, no matter your income, no matter your age, no matter your sex, no matter your gender. One thing that I know I want to do my part in addition to working with my colleagues on making sure that we are protecting our communities on Beacon Hill in what will be a very difficult budget season, is ensuring that those that are the most vulnerable in our communities feel heard. We are just wrapping up, myself along with Representative Scarsdale, actually everybody on this panel, with the exception of Jim McGovern, we're all on the Senate and House Ways and Means Committee. We held a series of hearings across the state, including one right here in North Central, where we heard from different agencies about the incredible need going forward. And one of the biggest conversations was equity in education. Many of us, we have major schools in our cities, but many parts of this region are represented by regional schools, and rural communities are really struggling right now. So one of the things I know I want to try to focus on is, in addition to many other things, is making sure that every child in this Commonwealth has access to education, that students that are going into schools right now are not going to have fewer options than we did growing up, and that, many of us are actually at an age where, my peers are having kids. You don't want the prospect of your child's future to look dimmer than yours did. And that's something that I think we have to keep in mind going forward. That's something that I want to keep in mind going forward. I had the honor last weekend of attending one of the rallies in Worcester, and there was a young girl there with a sign that said, "Save our future." And that's something I know I'm going to be taking with me moving into this legislative cycle and in the years to come, because that's what it's all about, is we need to protect our futures, but the generation that comes after us too. We have a responsibility and duty to do that, and I'm proud to be in this fight with everybody on this table, with Congressman McGovern in DC, and with all of you today. So thank you so much.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Margaret Scarsdale, and I represent the 1st Middlesex District, which is Ashby, Dunstable, parts of Groton, parts of Lunenburg, Pepperell, and Townsend. And it is really an honor to be in this room today and look out at all of you, because I'm thinking about all of the conversations and all of the remarks that have been made, all of the victories, all of the successes, whether it's being able to go back to school and get your degree or finding housing. All of that is made possible by the commitment and the collaboration and the heart of people like you in this room. So I want to thank you for all that work on the ground every day, all day, to make our communities more vibrant and more resilient. So Chelsea had said pick one topic, which is really extremely hard because they're all tied together, right? That John Muir quote, you can't pull on a thread anywhere without it, touching something else. But very quickly, Jenna had talked about public infrastructure, public health infrastructure. And a state report in 2024 found that more than half of our acute care hospitals in the Commonwealth have a negative operating margin. And Stewart Healthcare certainly had a negative operating margin. They closed Neshoba Valley Medical Center, which isn't exactly in my district, but it affects 13 towns, including all 6 of mine. They closed unceremoniously in 2024 with the less than 120 days notice that they were supposed to give. And now 16,000 people who went to the emergency rooms in 2023 now have to find emergency health care elsewhere. And I know a Harvard EMT talked about his life-saving experience in Neshoba Valley. Now those 16,000 are going to these outer ring hospitals who were already also overwhelmed. It's a burden on the EMS systems in the 13 towns because now they're traveling further to deliver care. They have to wait to transfer care. When they get a call back in their town and they're waiting still at Leominster Hospital, they have to rely on mutual aid. If those small towns happen to be out with their 1 or 2 trucks, it's just this devastating domino effect. And the sole reason for this is that we have allowed a system where profit is put over people. And profit is actually put over people's lives. And Sangeeta Rashid could attest to that, except tragically she died shortly after giving childbirth because St. Elizabeth's wasn't able to have a very simple tool that would have saved her life because it had been repossessed because of Stewart Healthcare. So very fundamentally, we have got to protect healthcare in the Commonwealth. And as Natalie mentioned, Rep. Higgins, I am very honored to support H2445, an act to preserve essential services in the Commonwealth with her. And then just very quickly, all the infrastructure in the world does not matter if you don't have access to healthcare, if you can't afford it. Rates are set to rise another 7%. That's on top of increases over 31% since 2015. Also completely unsustainable. So thank you for everything. I want to end on a positive note. Again, this is a tremendous room. You do tremendous work. And we started the meeting turning to our right and left to say thank you. And looking out across this room, I say thank you to each one of you.
I will say thank you to each one of you for being here today, for listening to these stories, for continuing to engage with your constituents and to fight for us. And right now, I am not going to give any closing remarks. What I am going to do is move us right into one last announcement, which is that we are, as you said, continuing to move forward. We are always moving forward here in North Central Mass, and we have an announcement to make, which is that we have recently been certified through AARP as healthy, as age-friendly North Central Mass, and thank you. And I want to thank our sponsoring community. So I'm going to call up Mayor Squalia because we're going to do some certificate presentations. The City of Fitchburg is our sponsoring community for this work. I'm also going to call up James Fuccione, who is from the Age-Friendly Massachusetts Healthy Aging Collaborative. There we go. I got it. So that age-friendly certification is a journey. That's the beginning of a journey. That is a commitment by our region to pursue age-friendly policies and practices in all of our communities. And it's important that we did it as a region because that is how we make the best progress, is by doing these things together. And so we're really proud of setting off on that journey together. Thank you all so much for joining us today. It was my pleasure to be with you all and see all your faces. I love seeing a packed room. Thank you.